So a really common question I get, what's the best drill? What's the best exercise to get the press handstand? Best exercise is literally just try it. Just try to press. But we want to do it in a very specific way. And even though we're going to fail for a while, we want to be able to fail in a way that builds strength, and we start to accumulate time in these positions to actually build the strength to be able to hold them later. So this is the press handstand liftoff. We're going to do a lot of variations of this, but the basic is as simple as it gets. You're literally just trying to press handstand, but instead of letting yourself collapse, you find that maximum position that you can hold at the greatest load and just stay there. Few seconds, accumulate time. So one thing we need to understand for this position is number one, hips as high as possible. So flexibility and proportions are going to make a difference. If you have short arms, short torso, long legs, it's going to make it easier to get your hips over your hands. But it's not an excuse, it's just a slight advantage. If you have that proportion, the more flexible you are, so the closer you can get your torso to your legs, the easier it's going to be to not lean into the shoulders. And then the strength, it's two elements of strength. So number one is the push up, so elevation of the scapula. And then number two is actually pushing into shoulder flexion. Now the shoulder flexion one is a bit more subtle, because what's going to happen is the arms are not going to be completely vertical for this. You're going to lean a little bit forward. It's very difficult to do a press handstand with zero lean, but the goal is to minimize the lean. And one of those things to minimize the lean is this idea of you're always pressing up and back. You have to press back because of where your legs are, they're pushing your shoulders forward. So your legs are making your shoulders go like this. So in order to counteract that, you have to push this way with your shoulders. And the position itself, this is something that also a lot of people struggle with, is more round than you think. You want to really round, this is where that spinal articulation comes in. So it's like my shoulders are vertical, right? But I'm not actually closing my shoulder, I'm actually rounding the back. So it's a maximum shoulder elevation and as round as you can be. So when you round, it pulls your ribs in, it gets all of this into that position. It's not necessary, you can do press handstand without it, but this is one of those things that makes the movement look really good, like it's a flower unfurling. And the round back is what allows you to not have to lean your shoulders as far forward, which of course makes the movement more efficient and take less strength. So let's get into it. As I said, we're going to do a lot of different variations, but the most simple one I think is the most effective. So get into our position, legs straight for this one or bent, again whatever is comfortable. It's really important that you're comfortable before going into it, and as you get more flexible you're going to extend the degrees to which you can find that comfort. So straight arms. So now we have straight arms and we push. So the weight's in my legs, my hips go forward, and as my hips travel forward, notice what's happening. I'm actually extending from my feet, from my toes. And as I go further onto my hands, I'm putting more tension into my shoulders, and I'm pushing up and rounding more as I continue to put more weight into my hands. So push, lean. Even though I'm leaning forward, I'm thinking about pushing down very strongly. It's important to have that directional intent. The manifestation's not always going to be what you think it is, because naturally the shoulders are going to be somewhere here. Generally, we don't want to lean too much further past the shoulder in line with the middle finger, plus or minus. It's a super general recommendation, but the intent is always to push down rather than allow it to go forward. So I've been talking a lot, I'll do the exercise now. Push, lean, go as far as you can, hold, come back. So I came halfway up on the toes. So next one I'm going to go a little bit further, and now I'm all the way up on the toes. And then come back. So what I'm doing is I go as far as I can. I don't let myself collapse. I keep the push in the shoulders, and I just hold for a few seconds, because that's the most physically intensive part of the press handstand, is that hover with the legs right below the floor. That's when you're going to feel the heaviest. So we want to build strength there, and we're just doing isometrics, accumulating strength in that position. If we can't hold it yet, it's okay. We just hold it as long as we can, with as much weight in the hands as possible, and as we adapt and get stronger, we'll be able to put more weight on the hands. So after you can get all the way up on the top of the toes, The next version is sliding. So here, and that slide, not only does it help you to compress your body more, but it also shows that you can momentarily take all the weight off your feet. So that's an important one. And you can do that in place. You can do that down the floor, but just getting comfortable in that position. And then the next level of that is, of course, just being able to lift and hold. That would be actually the final level. I'll add a couple more drills to help with that. But the idea that we're looking for is that we can lean, lift, and hover the feet off the floor without changing the position of the shoulders, without letting the shoulders collapse. So I would say that's the final level. So if you can do that, if you can hold that pose with the legs hovering off the floor for, say, 5 or 10 seconds, you're in a really good place. So you pretty much almost have a press handstand if you don't already. But you just have to spend time, and sometimes you have to find creative ways to build time in that position with the feet hovering off the floor. So for example, one thing we can do, we can modify the straddle jump. Instead of keeping the arms vertical, we lean a little bit into the arms. So what I'm doing now is the straddle jumps that we did earlier, but when I get to the top, I'm resisting a little bit, so now it's actually a lot heavier on my shoulders. But the point is that resistance is building strength so that I can hold it in the bottom position, right? We can do these walks. You can just do those around your house for conditioning. Simple. We can do, this is another version, right? We can elevate the feet slightly. So we can put the feet up on blocks, right? A few inches. We can do that same lean and shift. And what we can also do is try to lift up and gently place the feet on the floor by resisting in the shoulders. So lift, and then gently place them down. It's the same exercise, it's just a different way to accomplish it. So the purpose of all of it is just to spend time by pushing in the shoulders and keeping the feet as low as possible to the ground. So then just a couple other options on how to train this skill. Again, they're all the same exercise, just variations, but I like them. Instead of doing the same thing all the time, you can shift variations, but you should be doing some version of liftoffs in every press handstand training session. That's something I can say with 100% certainty. So from the knees, we're gonna maximally round the back, maximally push down, lean forward into the shoulders, and we're gonna extend the knees and lifting, sliding the feet like this. So the idea is, again, to always push down to try to minimize the forward lean. You shouldn't need socks or furniture sliders for this, honestly, because if you just put enough weight into your hands, your feet are gonna glide very lightly. If I don't put weight in the hands, of course, it's difficult to lift the feet. So what I have to do is make sure that I have enough weight in my hands before I go into this exercise. And then final variation, this one's a bit more complex, it's a bit different. It's a version of the straddle walk, but it's the backwards straddle walk. So now, instead of going like this, we're actually gonna try to do that movement. So do it before you try the skill itself. You might also remember in the tuck handstand, we did this drill where we curled onto the upper back and then pressed. So it's a very similar idea here. We're gonna do press walks backwards and focus on pushing away, because that's also part of the press handstand. So we can start to condition that movement of fully opening the shoulders into the end range of the flexion. So shoot. Push, shoot, push, shoot, push. So just another variation to try for your basic conditioning movements.